We'll call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Gilgrave. Vining. Here. Germaini. Here. Lamore.
Present.
Felder.
Here.
Whitman. Here. Mayor Clark.
Here. I ask all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide us in our deliberations and discussions this evening. May our efforts promote the good of the residents of the city and all who visit.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start the council meeting and agenda and move forward with council action, I just want to take a moment because in the past week we lost a dear friend of our Monroe community, a person that is a friend, a colleague, a community advocate, a person of faith, a person of influence that was very much involved in all of our community. And her citizen service and her community service is well known by not only just the council, but many residents that I'll just say came to be that citizen service because of her engagement, her involvement. Miss Jackie Mcgee passed away here a week ago, and Jackie is a dear friend. I think back from my days here long before I was with the city when we had an opportunity to meet. And then we served together and just found ourselves sitting on the Planning Commission, and from the Planning Commission, of course, the zoning. But Jackie Mcgee was a person that always had a cheerful smile and was willing to help anybody. And if she didn't have the answer, she'd move forward to make sure you'd get there. She retired from Monroe County. She worked in the court system as I always found interesting, said enforcement, I believe, officer, which was, I thought, Jackie's not an enforcer. She's an advocate that gets people there. And I think that she did well within that role of her employment service. Long-term member of the Arthur Leslie Community Center, MCOP. I could go on. There's a long list of her years of service, whether it be the most recent with the Citizens Planning Commission, and she served probably with that 7-8 years, and also the Housing Commission and serving on the Housing Commission. A lady that had a lot of passion and desire for our community has left us, but I know that her legacy, her memory, our knowledge of what she's provided for us, the community will not be lost. I know council, I'm certain will have comments that later in the meeting in council comments, but our obviously thoughts and prayers and condolences for the family for not only their loss, but our community's loss. And I ask if we just at this time will take a moment of silence, please, in recognition of the loss and great work from Jackie Mcgee. Thank you. I know we could spend the entire evening speaking of all the great that she did in our community, but also of our personal relationships. I'm sure we'll hear some more of that later. Clerk, with that, to the next item, please.
The next item is the approval of the regular agenda.
Any items on the agenda or any adjustments from the council or administration? Seeing none, next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for item B, approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,073,165.70, 1073165.70.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Items from the consent agenda. Yes, sir.
Mayor, would there be a copy of the agenda?
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. It's right by the clerk's counter there, but I'll give a moment to make sure that people can obtain that may have one. I have a couple extra copies here if there's needed. So on the consent agenda for those here, and we'll see if there's anything, the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, the amount of vendors, which was provided by the clerk, appointments to boards and commissions, and the MERS defined contribution plan are the items on the consent agenda. Oh, I'm gonna see if there's any. So are there any items from those present here this evening that wish to have an item pulled from the consent agenda? On a motion be ordered. Councilman Stillgrave, did you have an additional comment or?
No.
Councilman Felder?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve all items on the consent agenda, that they be accepted, recommendations carried out, resolutions adopted.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Hearing no further comments, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave? Yes. Vining? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is item 3425, the Opportunity Center at ALCC Quarterly Report.
Thank you. Mr. Pastou, if you have either a communication or a presentation?
We have no presentation tonight. Again, as part of the quarterly report they're required in accordance with their agreement, we have it for a communication item. No actions required on part of council, just we'll accept and file.
Okay, I'll see if there's any comments from the council members. If not, just a motion to accept and place on file. Councilwoman Steelgrave?
I'll make the motion to place it on file, to accept and place on file. I'll second.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Steelgrave, supported by Councilwoman Germaini, that the Opportunity Center ALCC quarterly report be accepted and placed on file. Actually, I just realized we don't need a motion. We're going to do it anyways. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining? Yes. Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore? Yes. Felder?
Yep.
Whitman? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes, thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action, item 3426, authorization of Port of Monroe.
So the next three items are on the consent agenda, so they're not on the consent, which got approved all at once. There's usually information that's provided by Mr. Pastou or others for the consent agenda, but I'll just see if there's any items, Mr. Pastou, on the authorization of the Port of Monroe.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're asking approval tonight of a resolution authorizing the sale of 16.8 acres by the Port of Monroe for property located at 1700 East Front Street to Shunley Steel, USA. It's property located just east of where Hanwha is on East Front Street near the freeway interchange. It's obviously been reviewed, recommended by the Port of Monroe Commission.
Any comments or questions from council? So this item was, when a Port of Monroe property comes forward, I just will share the fact that it comes to city council for approval while they manage the port, manage the property through the arrangements and agreement with the port. These items come back to council. Councilman Moore?
Yeah, just making a motion, Your Honor.
Very well.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution to authorize the Port Commission to sell the 16.8 acre parcel located at 1700 East Front Street to Shunley Steel USA Incorporated.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Felder, on item 3426, authorization of the Port of Monroe for the sale of property as stated. No further questions. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 3430, selection of Orchard East Sub-Area Plan Consultant.
Thank you. Mr. Pastou?
Thank you, Your Honor. This item here is requesting authorization to accept a proposal for OHM Advisors, the amount of $52,000 for the Orchard East sub-area plan. Authorize manager to initiate, sign the documents to initiate the engagement. This proposal, we held interviews a couple weeks ago with council members Felder and Vining, along with myself, Mr. Cochran, and Caitlin Pierce in the planning department. And it was unanimous to recommend the OHM advisors for this project. Upon initiating here roughly in the next several weeks, we anticipate its completion within 6 months.
Thank you. Any questions from council or any comments about the item? No other comments? Motion would be in order.
I'll make that.
Councilwoman Germaini?
Make a motion to move to accept proposal from OHM Advisors in the amount of $52,000 for the Orchard East sub-area plan and authorize, should it say Vince? City manager to sign the necessary documents to initiate the engagement.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Germaine, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave on item 3430, selection of the Orchard East sub-area plan consultant, OHM Advisors, and the additional information stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining? Germaine? Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 3429, consideration to approve fly ash facility agreement with DTE Energy.
Mr. Pastu? some
Thank you, Your
information?
Honor. City Administration is recommending approval of an agreement with DT Energy for the use of wastewater effluent as part of their fly ash treatment process, and also to authorize the mayor and clerk treasurer to sign on behalf of the agreement on behalf of the city. As discussed during the work session, we had prior discussions related to whether this facility would be on the tax roll, and given the fact that it does not add to the production capacity of the plant and that it is in response to a environmental regulation, it does not go on the tax roll. As a result of it, we're anticipating about $30,000 a year going into the wastewater fund, and also additional revenue into the water fund because of they'll use the potable water as part of their fire suppression system. So we're recommending approval of the agreement.
Any questions from council for the administration? Seeing none, Councilman Lamore?
Yeah, Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with DTE Energy for the use of wastewater effluent as part of the fly ash treatment process and authorize the mayor and clerk treasurer to sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
It's a motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 3429, the consideration to approve the fly ash facility agreement with DTE, and as stated. Additional comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining? Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk?
I have no further items, Your Honor.
So there's no other items on the consent agenda. We move to council comments. It is February, which starts with the second precinct. Councilwoman Stillgrave, comments this evening?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I would like to extend my thoughts and prayers to Jackie's family and friends. Known her for a lot of years as well. And also, again, it's my second month on here. I'm excited to keep moving forward and excited for the new things that are coming. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Vining?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say I'm very excited to begin the Orchard East sub-area plan. I was really impressed with OHM's proposal, especially how much outreach they had planned for the community, and to include the greater community, but especially to focus on the stakeholders within the Orchard East. So that's exciting. I'm glad we finally got there. Excited to get started. I also want to extend my condolences to Jackie Mcgee's family. I've been knowing Jackie all my life, and as you said, Your Honor, it is a great loss for the community, especially the service community, as she was such a community servant and advocate. I followed her around as a child. My children were in her dance and choir, children's choir, when they were young. She even babysat my grandchildren, so she's been a part of my immediate family for 3 generations and even generations before that. One of the big projects I remember Jackie worked really hard on, and I think the clerk treasurer worked with her on this, the Hallenberg Park basketball court, where she raised $50,000 to have that new updated basketball court installed, and it's gotten a lot of use since then. She's also pretty much single-handedly responsible for me running for city council, so you guys have her to thank for me being here. I have been pulled on for several years to run for city council. Everybody knows I'm a background player, so I didn't want to be out front, but she convinced me, and her husband at the time, Calvin Mcgee, who sat in this seat at one point, they really encouraged me and put their money where their mouth was, and here I am. But she left a great legacy in her 3 children, just wonderful children, also advocates. And I just again want to give my deepest condolences and sympathies to her family and to the community as a whole, especially the Orchard East community, as it was a big blow and a great loss. But at the same time, I thank God that she is no longer suffering. And so thank you for giving us time to speak on Jackie. She was a beautiful lady.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Germaine.
I had the pleasure of working with Jackie on the Housing Commission. She definitely was a bright light for the entire county, and I think her light will continue to shine. So my condolences also go to the family and to our community. And on another note, I would like to request at the next work session that we have the Marion Court or Marion Drive street discussion. Everyone should have received an email on the background, and just to see if city council even wants to move it forward. And if the residents really want it, that's the most important thing. I don't know if all the residents want it or not. I've reached out to a few of them, but I still have a few more to reach out to. So if we can add it to that, that would be wonderful. So we can discuss it. Thank you. That's all, Your Honor.
That sounds good. Thank you. And thank you for the information provided leading up to this. Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. My condolences as well to the Mcgee family. Jackie was a great woman, and she served on the CPC as well. And I know seeing her as liaison to the CPC and also working on the CPC, she was just an absolute tremendous asset to the community. On tonight's consent agenda, we had an appointment of boards and commissions, which we passed through. Thank you for those people that wanted to help out the city. I appreciate that. And I know that we have some of my community members here from my area, and I wanted to shout out to them that we are going to have a tree advisory committee that we're going to appoint people to. And I truly ask your help in being one of you maybe being appointed to that committee, and that we can sort some of these things out and get what you really want for your area to be done. And this is the way we do these things, is to get more citizens involved with these committees, and getting your help is instrumental in what we decide up here. So that's my ask for that. Tonight's presentation by Mark and Mr. Felbeck was great at the work session. I really look forward to that new housing construction coming forward. And that's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I do think it is important to acknowledge, a loss within the community from people who have served it, and certainly Jackie Mcgee, but also former Sheriff Dale Malone and former firefighter Al Wolf, who was an employee of the city. It's public service it deserves that recognition sometimes, and I think that it's well deserved on all parts. Regarding the trees, I know that this is an issue that comes close to home for me. My neighborhood last year, I think we lost 9 of them. So in addition to having an active management strategy in terms of what we're going to trim and having good reason to do so, I think that we also need to have an aggressive replanting strategy of parts of the city to make up for what's being taken down. I think that some of the trees present were identified through a database approach in having certain risks to property and people, and I think that that's why that decision was made. If there are residents here who are interested in serving and advising the council on these matters, we've taken a very forward stance in terms of this is something it's an issue that's important to us, and that's why we formed a committee to, be made up of residents who care about the issue. And I think that there is sufficient work. I know we discussed it in the work session to occupy their time in doing so, because there's issues that need to be discussed there, and not only what trees to be taken down, but also I know that we had discussed in the past of forming a strategic plan and then engaging nurseries early on to go and claim so that we could pick out trees that were a little bit wider for replanting, so that they would have a better chance of survival once they did get replanted, and also that the regrowth time would be less, so the impact to the neighborhoods would be less. So I mean, this is an issue that council has been engaged on actively for some time. I think the disagreement is totally fair, and welcome it, and urge all of you to be involved. I hope that it's not just one of you that are serving on the tree committee. I hope that every single one of you, after leaving here, put in an application, because we would love to hear your voices ahead of time. And I apologize if we didn't do that in advance. Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Whitman.
Yes, I also think that the Orchard East suburbia plan is a great idea. And I wish that we would have, I know that it's going to be helpful in that section of town and in other sections, that, so I'm very happy about that. As far as Jackie McGee, I didn't meet her until I started going down to the Arthur Leslie Center, and what a joy! How knowledgeable and welcoming that she was to City Council. So, and it was, I believe that City Council has worked hard to make many improvements, but we couldn't do it if we didn't have the knowledge of the people that work in certain situations, to guide us and help us. So, my heart goes out to her family and to all those that worked with her that depended on her. So, I think that's all that I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I just have a couple of follow-up comments, of course, with Jackie and personal friend. And I will say that she'd light up a room when she walked in, and you'd start smiling, and you start laughing, and pretty soon the laugh was contagious, and she was a dear friend. It was mentioned, there's unfortunately, as you get through life, there's those that pass on. Of course, Sheriff Dale Malone, a friend and a colleague, not only current, but in our past careers together. And of course, he'll be lost. I thank another, as well as his service. And then there was also, as Councilman Feller said, one of our retired firefighters, Al Wolf, passed away. And think about his service through his commitment into the department and service from his employment here as well. So one other announcement I'd like to make, and of course, this is Black History Month. And there's opportunities. The community college has several items that people can kind of, I'll say, zoom into some of the virtual meetings, but there's some opportunities that are moving forward. And the Robert Selden Duckinson Society and the Monroe Art League, along with support from foundations like the Lazy Boy and others, they're having there'll be a Black Artists of Metropolitan Detroit presentation. If you go to the River Raisin National Battlefield Park between February 1st, which is of course already started, through the end of the month of February 28th, 10 to 5 daily, there's a whole display of art that is being presented. And it shows the talents and the artists locally, but also regionally that are in place there to take a view. And I think this is not the first art exhibit that's been shown at the Visitor and Education Center. But in this particular, it shows what talent there is. But the other part of this is, and it's also going to be held at the River Raisin National Battlefield Park Amphitheater, is the lecture and art presentation. And our college president, Mr. Corte, is going to be kind of presiding over it. We have two keynote speakers that'll be there. I say we because it's our community, but it's the Art League and the Albert S. Duncanson Society. And I see far more, even greater opportunities as we get back to the formation of a art fair and involvement here with him. So that is on Saturday, February 19th from 5 to 8 p.m. If you have that evening available, go out and listen to some of the information that's provided regarding the Black artists in our metropolitan Detroit area, but also here in Robert S. Duncanson. Those that have been watching, they are well aware of his time here back from the mid-1800s, and as he became a world-renowned artist, but yet seemed to have been forgot about until this past inauguration when his painting was selected to hang at the in the White House as the artist from our nation. So he's a landscape artist, and I know there's some information at the museum as well regarding Robert S. Duncanson, but he was a Monroe person, and look forward to how we can continue to champion those causes. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
I have no comments this
Thank you.
evening, Your Honor.
Mr. Bastu, comments?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, so next is citizens' comments. So just mindful, as I know there's some that are here, there's some that are at the entrance, and also some that are seated that wish to speak. Just mindful of the rules of the chamber that if you wish to speak, please address the chair and the council. And we have 3-minute comment period time. Please be mindful of that. Now, if you get close to that time, I'll let you know about that. And if there's just if you would state your name for the record and jurisdiction of residence, that is appreciated as well. So, comments from those present here this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is William Godfroy. I live at 645 Godfroy, lifelong citizen of Monroe. Went to law school and college out of Monroe, but came back. I'm here because of the trees that are being cut down in my neighborhood. I got selected to have 4 of my trees cut down. I had called the city when I got the notice on January 19th. And when Mr. Abbott told me I had to speak with his boss about the trees, I was directed to Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis, I left a message. In response to that, I get a call from Mr. Buds saying I have to go through Mr. Buds to discuss my trees. Why I am singled out just because I'm a lawyer, but I'm a citizen, I think I should be able to talk to a city manager if I have to, or the head of that, the engineering department to talk about my trees. I would hope that I can talk tonight without having to talk to Mr. Buds about the trees. The notice we get on January 19th, or the letter comes, by the time we get that letter, they start cutting the trees down a day or two later. In that letter, it says we'd be getting notice when they're going to start cutting. No one got a notice when they were at the door. They were just out in the street cutting. The letter coming from the engineering department or Mr. Abbott's office said they would tag and let us know a couple days in advance. No notice. Majority of the trees in our neighborhood, there was 48 selected or 47 selected. I'm objecting to my 2 that are green tagged. When I asked what the green tags were when I called versus the red tags, I was told by the receptionist that they must have ran out of paint. Now, they're pretty callous comment, I thought at the time. They did now put on the website, or not the website, on the answering machine, if you're calling about the trees, the city is taking down the orange one and the hired gun to cut down the other ones. No input. They're not staggering them. When I asked why aren't they cutting the trees that are in the wires, I was advised they were not marked by the city, and it costs more to take those trees down. They're not staggering the trees. You're cutting tree after tree after tree. They're not going to be replaced till the fall. Our yards are going to burn out, and no one from the city cared. No one from the manager's office or the engineering department or the city Forestry, I know we don't really have a forestry department anymore, but the forest supervisor, nobody contacted anybody in the neighborhood for input. Your contract was led in December. No one is notified about the tree removal until January. That isn't how you treat the citizens. We should have had some input and some contact. That's all we're asking for. You didn't ask for our advice, and it's certainly frustrating. So now you're asking people to join a committee, committees that are supposed to give input. You didn't want it before.
Mr. Godfrey, you're at 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other comments from those present here this evening? Gentleman in the back.
My name's Rob Peven, and I'd like to speak about the same issue that, and I wrote a letter to the mayor and council, and thank you, Councilman Felder, for writing back. Yeah, it's, I understand that that space between the sidewalk and the curb is the city's, and that the trees in that space are the city's. And I understand that silver maples are not the best trees, and there was a lot of damage during the storm over the summer. But those trees are really important to the neighborhood. And I don't need to tell the council all the benefits that the city trees have. Well, all the trees in that neighborhood, they're huge trees that tower over the neighborhood and really define and give a lot of character, a lot of shade, a lot of habitat. And to take them all down, so many trees at one time, it's amazing. And it's really bothersome that the city didn't get any input from the residents, that we just get this letter saying, you're taking down the trees. And I know some people are happy to see some of the trees taken down. And but all the trees that are standing have been there for probably longer than I've been alive, probably longer than all of us have been alive. And they're healthy trees. They're not, some of them have problems, but all the trees there have withstood the storm. They're strong trees. They would have fallen down if they were weak trees, but they didn't. And that storm we had was kind of a once in a century kind of storm. These trees have weathered a lot of storms. They're not falling down all over the place. I have one in my front yard that didn't get an X on it. And I know they're not the best trees. The roots are all over my garden, and I have to pick up sticks all the time from the lawn, but they're healthy trees, and they shouldn't all be taken down, and the city should ask the residents for some input. And like I said, I know it's the city's trees, but people have a lot of connection to those trees, and they value the trees, and it's a shame to see so many cut down at one time. And like Mr. Godfrey said, I don't know what they're going to be replaced with, but they haven't been the greatest trees, the replacement trees I've seen planted around. They're very small caliper, and not all of them survive. So I hope the city puts a lot of effort into replacing them with appropriate species and nice sized trees as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peven. Other comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Mike Gainier, 433 St. Mary's. My wife really should be the one up here because she's lived in our house since 1955, and the trees in the front yard were there when she was born into that house. So I'm not going to reiterate what Mr. Godfrey or Mr. Peven has said, because you guys know that, right? So there's only 2 points I do want to make, though. One, and I talked to the mayor about this, we all agree that certain trees have to come down. They're not healthy. But there seems to be trees that are healthy, and that, is there any way that we can slow this project down? So instead of removing 100 and some trees like in the next 30, 60 days, that we can space this out until we can get other trees in there. And Mayor, I talked to you about my Charlie Brown tree in the front of my yard that they replaced a beautiful tree that needed to come down. My tree did need to come down, but to replace it with a twig, literally, it's. Mayor's got a picture. He can show you all if you want to see it. I would have paid the difference just to have a nice tree. I won't live long enough to have shade from that tree. Let's just put it that way, okay? So I am asking if there any consideration to slowing this project down. I know you've already approved it and it's moving, but if there's any consideration of that, I would definitely appreciate that. And we will get people to serve on your committee. For the future, it really doesn't help us for now. And I think what we're all upset about is the character of our neighborhood. It's if you drive around and see what's going on, it's being torched, is what it is. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gainer.
something?
No, I'm too mad. You don't want to hear me.
Other comments from those present? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jim Consier, 624 Godfrey Avenue. Again, I'm here for the tree situation that everybody is here that are concerned about. I know, like Mr. Stevens has said, that the trees are the city trees between the street and the sidewalk, and we understand that. But to get a letter the day before the trees start to fall in your neighborhood, I get a letter on one day, and the next day or two, the next day after that, I've got a truck that's tearing down 5-6 trees in my yard or in my area. And then I get a letter saying that there's 110 trees, I think 110 trees that are going to come down, and 47 of them are in St. Mary's Gardens. I mean, on 3 streets, which I think is totally crazy. I think that if the trees needed to come down, they should be come down a little at a time. Not all the trees needed to come down. We do have, we used to have a forestry division. I know that there is the forest come around and do the trees, and I think instead of spending almost $150,000 to have somebody come in and whack these things down, we do it at a different type of pace, 3 or 4 or 5 at a time. But to take 47 trees down and three streets a half a mile long each is, to me, it's ridiculous. I mean, I know Brian lives in that neighborhood. I'm not sure. I mean, but you go down the street and you see these X's on these trees, and some of them do need to come down. There's no doubt about that. But definitely not 47 at one time. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Other comments? Yes.
Hello, I'm Pam Harwood, 326 West Lorraine. I'm also here for the trees. And I agree with everything that's been said. I think the big issue is you're coming into a neighborhood that is known for the character of their trees. I mean, that's part of it. And you're really decimating it. And again, I was shocked to get a letter a day before they started to cut them down. We had no time to talk to anybody. I think the other big issue is, this is a small community. Why wouldn't you reach out to us? Why wouldn't you want to engage in dialogue with a project that is so, I mean, it's really hitting home with a lot of people. There's 300 homes in that neighborhood. And these guys are coming through and they're cutting them so fast, and you're not going to be able to revitalize that. There's no way. And you really, the negative consequences are many. You're reducing the property values. You have all types of environmental issues that you're creating by doing this. I think that this plan is an overreaction. I think it's an overreach. I think that obviously you need to manage the trees. Nobody wants people injured. Nobody's saying that. But there is a way to keep the character of the neighborhood, to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve without destroying the beauty and the character of this neighborhood. I would hope that in the future we would have the ability to talk with you prior to something like this happening. And as far as the committee, yes, I did not know anything about it. And again, it would have been nice to have known prior to this.
Thank you, Pam. Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, please come forward.
Colby, City of Monroe. So on January 11th, the City of Monroe issued a statement that's, quote, given the recent rise in the coronavirus Omicron variant, city administration encourages all staff and visitors to wear masks in City Hall as city business and open meetings are being conducted. This was under the pretense that protecting health and wellness of its residents and employees of the City of Monroe was a top priority. But as we sit here today, I've counted, I believe, 6 members who are blatantly ignoring this urge to action. Do as I say, not as I do. So you can't seem to get on the same page about public safety and agree to work as a unit to follow your own advice to the public. The city refuses to make these meetings more safe and accessible by providing the public with a hybrid option, despite its ability to do so. So it cites that the public meetings must take place in person due to the Open Meetings Act. However, that only really pertains to the members of council as I can read it. It's basically, we would be asking for you to expand accessibility in person if you're comfortable doing so, and virtually if you're willing to take that risk of maybe not being heard, but also this it's dangerous otherwise. Other cities in Michigan have passed resolutions to do this despite the lack of change in the Open Meetings Act. So while I can't know your personal reasons, I can't help but feel like one benefit from your hesitancy to make these meetings more accessible to the public would be to silence the voices of people who would like to make comments. Last year, City Council seemingly got frustrated with the number of people who were calling and writing in, particularly expressing anger and urging compassion via written letters about moving the Custer statue. Dozens of Native people were given a voice during that time when they might not have otherwise had an opportunity. And what did council do? We stopped reading letters aloud into the record. Instead, it was pitched as a positive thing that now the records would have the letters permanently. However, and that's good, but this does not allow for citizens to engage with those comments in real time, and it doesn't allow most people the opportunity to hear what other people are saying, and it doesn't guarantee to the public that anyone on the council has actually read or listened to what they have to say. And then there were call-ins. Dozens of people were calling in when we had online options to express their sentiments about the statue, pride flags, the MLK Bridge, urging City Council to denounce white supremacy and making Monroe safer for everyone, regardless of skin color. So the moment that City Council didn't need to be in, online, it stopped. And despite there being roads to do hybrid, it still doesn't. Meetings have gotten a lot quieter now that the only people who show up are people who are willing to risk their health and safety in order to fight for justice. So I just want to say I know people who aren't here because of health concerns. I know people who are disabled who cannot come out in public still because of this virus. Great leaders are ones who welcome comments that they might not agree with, and great leaders lead by example. So please do as I say because I'm doing it. Thank you.
Cool. Other comments from those present? Yes, sir.
My name's Stephen Meyer. I live in Precinct 1, and I'm going to build off of what the previous speaker was saying. So on January 3rd, I first wrote to my council member about why isn't this city doing more to fight the COVID virus, and protect citizens. And I asked, why isn't there a virtual option? I didn't get a response from my council members, so I sent it to the mayor and the clerk, and then I got a response on January 7th, which basically just went at length to say, our hands are tied. And they wanted to make it sound like, or it seemed like the letter wanted to make it sound like the city wants to do more but can't. And I thought, but really, what is tying the city's hands down? And so I looked into some of the specific claims in the letter that it said the Open Meetings Act, and then there were vague things like saying that just limited powers, that we can't do more. And then And so I wrote back to, and actually as I was in the middle of like researching and trying to find out like what's tying the city signs down, they put out the press release on January 11th, which kind of echoed all the stuff that was in the letter to me. So then I wrote back and I specifically like, and I'd actually love to hear the city attorney address this. Because I haven't heard anybody from the city actually address it. And nobody's written back to me since that letter I got on January 7th. And I've repeatedly written back. So does the Opening Meetings Act allow for the citizens to have a hybrid meeting? Because as I read it, only the council members have to be here. Could you actually like speak to that?
Stephen, it's your time for 3 minutes to address the.
Okay, well, and then, but really, and then the question is like, what does the city want to do that it can't? Like, what is tying the city's hands down? Because it's, yeah, and like the other speaker said, it says mask is encouraged, but like, how is the city council encouraging it when 4 out of the 6 members, the council members, like walk around everywhere, get off the elevators? They, like at the last meeting on January 18th, 4 out of the 6 members got off the elevators, out of the stairwells, maskless, walked past me, sat here the whole time. And then you're more well protected up there than we are out here. You've got those partitions. You're far away from everybody. We don't have that. We have to put ourselves at more risk to attend this than you do. And so like, why isn't the city of Monroe trying to protect the citizens? That's really my main question. Like, what does the city want to do that it can't, you know? And so please, I'd love to hear the city attorney address that specifically with the law. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Other comments from those present here this evening? Any final comments? Before we adjourn, I guess I want to make a couple comments. I'm going to take the opportunity to at least, I'm not going to address everything. I'll start with the trees. And clearly the communication of the residents was not sufficient to their liking nor sufficient to them to see what their personal involvement would like to be. But at the same time, I have to say, and I know that some of this was sent to some of the residents that spoke here today, and I can make that available, that was sent together about the previous meetings and work sessions and council meetings and presentations and the whole discussion with the council. Council just didn't send a letter, we're going to cut trees down, and I think it's part of it. But I understand that not everybody attends a council meeting, not everybody sees it until it's in front of them, and sometimes we can send letters out and more timely. I know that I talked on the phone with a couple of the people who spoke this evening. I've received emails as well. And some I've sent back and some I haven't. I just, I think the conversation today is at least, I'll say, tempered into the item that I hear, which is greater information, but also how we go about removing trees. And I don't think anybody here said that they shouldn't be removed. But early on when I heard it was a deforestation, I have to say that I kind of had to think about that as I talked on the phone and as I drove through the community, the neighborhood, that the current trees. There's 101 trees that are being in the contract across the entire city. 45 of them, 47, do fall within the area of the residents that are speaking this evening. So maybe think about that and say, well, and I know they're not all the silver maples, but that seems to be where the focus is because those are where the greatest challenges and problems are. So 10 trees were to be removed on Godfrey. I think 8 are being removed. And so there was discussion about 2 that will, while they're still on the list, won't be done at this time, is my understanding. But there's 120 trees on Godfrey Street. So that's 10% of the trees. Borges, there's another 10 trees that are being removed on Borges, which is 111 trees that are present on that street. Now we have cross streets also. There's some that are being removed. There's 8 on the cross streets. And there's 111 trees on those cross streets. Excuse me, hold on. And the last part of St. Mary's, that seemed to have mostly the largest impact of the 100 trees that are there. It's one less street, but there's 19 trees there. And so this is the conversation I had with the resident. It was about the congregation of trees and the density of which the removal, and I understand that. Then I got into the conversation with others about the tree replacement, which we've had this discussion here well over a year plus about the caliper of trees that are replaced. Some terraces or boulevards, or whatever you want to call it, are narrow, and you can't put the root ball if it's narrow. But the one gentleman that spoke this evening, his obviously has a much wider, almost a 5-foot terrace area, which could take a larger caliper. And those are things that the council has discussed and are looking to the future about how we replace. The idea of the tree commission came long before the letters went out and was said at one of the meetings here. And I hope that there's opportunities to discuss that. But the item is a citywide tree advisory commission, because they're all important. There's 11,000 trees in the city of Monroe. And while the density is in these 3 streets, I understand overall it's a 1% loss of trees. So I understand the importance of trees. I think everybody here does. And but I also understand we're not cutting down the small trees. It's the large ones that give the aesthetics of a neighborhood wherever they are across the city. And we have those throughout our community. So I wanted to say I appreciate the residents being here. I think there's more discussion will probably come from trees. I'm not looking to the city attorney for a comment regarding the other comments, but I guess the Open Meetings Act, and there was the opportunity for virtual meetings, and then that wasn't through the legislature wasn't continued, that we have to have a meeting as council to be here. Is there option for a hybrid meeting? There could be if it would be reliable, but it's going to take the problems of not having necessarily people that can connect correctly or not be heard or ours not heard, that we then become in violation of the Open Meetings Act, and that will be the next comment. I know there's been examples given by those present here. We've talked to a neighboring community that has somewhat of a hybrid meeting, and speaking with the trustee and a couple, it's not working as well as is being stated to be. We've made the decision that we think we can continue to hold meetings here in a safe and productive manner, and we are one of the few communities that put our meetings over live stream, Impact, YouTube, and there's opportunities for the public to provide their information. There's a reason why we ask for items to come before the meeting, because they have to be part of the agenda, or you can submit it and it'll appear on the next item, the next council agenda. I'm not the city attorney, and I'm not asking Mr. Buds to address comments. So this is a public comment time for those that raise concerns or issues or their thoughts that then the administration and the staff and then the council has further discussion. I know Clerk Treasurer Lavoie and I chat frequently about correspondences that come in. Is it part of the record? Is it not? Is it asked to be? Council gets numerous emails on a variety of topics as well. And I guess when we had hybrid, you're right, we would get a lot of calls that would come in. And I'm going to use an example which would made it a challenge. The clerk's office was put in on as a subscriber, so a person could simply subscribe and all it would come in, and yet it would be the same letter with a different name on it. So are we to read the letter, and there was I think 12 at the one time, all the same with a different name, or do we read the one that we did because it came in before the decision was made, but make everybody's comments and messages available in the public record? And if I'm speaking off, I know Mr. Buds, our attorney, will correct me. So I do this as a review this evening because the conversations continue on a variety of things, and I just thought some clarity was necessary from that standpoint. I'm not asking Mr. Buds. I think he can, if he wishes to speak and address, I'll do that through the administration at a future meeting. I want to thank those that are here this evening. I hope we have an opportunity to converse further on the topics. Seeing no other items and no other comments, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilwoman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes. Thank you again.